I'm calling today's talk Kawayat Emptor, Buyer Beware, YouTube video psych experts. They're all over the place. Um, Narcissism is their particular favorite topic. Um, they're useful. The 12 characteristics of the female narcissist. Uh, how to blow the narcissist's mind. Are you a victim of narcissistic abuse? Uh, so many experts out there cranking these things out. Uh, some of these so-called experts are better than others, but they all offend me in the objectified way they describe these personality disorders. The DSM is no better, or any of the other encyclopedias of personality types. I think it was Kretschmer back in the 1940s who talked about the phlegmatic and the we're very drawn to this kind of categorization. It's always grossly oversimplified. I'm including psychiatry and psychoanalysis and psychology here. They describe these types as if they are describing insects. They're describing people as if they can be summed up and categorized in these neat ways. Now, I'm not against all categorization. We need to categorize in order to function in this world. But we should hold our categories very, very lightly and even skeptically. At best, they can serve a function, when you're up in the air in a helicopter, or if you're looking down on the world from a satellite, you can see patterns, you can see grids. But as you come down closer to the earth, the clear lines separating the categories begin to blur. It's useful enough when I meet a new patient for me to try to figure out roughly, is this patient functioning primarily in the paranoid schizoid position, or is this patient functioning more in the depressive reparative position? In other words, am I going to be dealing essentially with a neurotic of some sort, or am I dealing with someone who is more on the narcissistic, borderline psychotic spectrum? That's useful to get a sense of that in my first meeting with a new person. That's useful. But when we begin to go beyond that, and we start to tell ourselves, well, I'm clearly dealing here with a borderline. I'm clearly dealing here with a paranoid personality. We're heading in a somewhat dangerous direction. It is always dangerous to oversimplify, and these categories always oversimplify. Of course, that's why we like them, because we can't deal with the full complexity of things. It's overwhelming. So we choose to oversimplify. But that can be helpful. It can be very harmful. So a year or so ago, I did a first video lecture on masochism. based on one of the best articles, I believe, in the literature. Bernd Berliner's article, An Object Relations View of Masochism. But as soon as I was finished outlining Berliner's views, I was quite uneasy. Critique, oversimplification, bias. A few weeks later, I was compelled to do a second video, significantly revising the view of masochism that I had laid out in that first video. And then still not satisfied, because although I had pretty thoroughly described this pathological type, this pathological personality suffering from masochism, not sexual masochism, I was talking about what Freud called moral masochism, but I became dissatisfied because these people certainly do look pathological. It seems like they are allowing themselves to be used and abused. And then I ran across that song that had always kind of haunted me. Bill Withers, Use Me Up. My friends all tell me, you're just using me. And my brother sits me right down and in a room and tells me I shouldn't let you be walking all over me. But then he sings, if it feels this good getting used, then use me up. And then he says, brother, if you were only in my shoes, if you only knew that thing she does, you'd wish you were in my shoes. So use me up. Okay. To the world, this guy, well, I mean, he says, it's true. You really do abuse me. You get me among your high-class friends, and then you talk real rude to me. But baby, if it feels this good, okay. Human relationships are incredibly complicated. You could sum somebody up as a narcissist, but is that all they are? Are they also something else? Okay, these YouTube experts, they don't have these second thoughts. You don't see them coming back a few days later and revising their talk on the 12 characteristics of the female narcissist or whatever. They seem to come on as if they are scientists. Well, and of course the worst of them, I'm not going to mention his name, but he claims to be a physicist, a psychologist, and he comes on like a real scientist. But if you watch all of his videos, you finally come to the video in which he openly acknowledges that he is a psychopath. He has acknowledged almost from the beginning that he's a narcissist, and that's pretty evident. But then he gets around to acknowledging that he's a psychopath. And in one of his most scary videos, he talks about how while your ordinary narcissist lives to gather narcissistic supply from the attention and the admiration, etc., of other people, some narcissists kind of like go over and sample sadistic supply instead of narcissistic supply. And it's like once you go, you never go back. It's even better than narcissistic supply, he says. So he's really into getting sadistic supply, the thrill of being in control, domineering, dominating, putting people down. So this is a dangerous man. This is a pretty sick man. The problem is he's also pretty brilliant. And that is a really dangerous combination. That kind of intelligence that he certainly has, and the knowledge he has, he clearly does his homework, but he's a very disturbed personality. Uh, that's a that's that's a dangerous combination. Well, okay, he's the most dangerous, but all of these experts are dangerous in their own way. They give listeners the feeling that they know. They give listeners the feeling that equipped with this YouTube knowledge, they now can diagnose their near and dear. It feeds omnipotence and grandiosity, and it feeds oversimplification. The function of the good teacher, well, I'll look back at my own career. As a young man, the students loved me. I was cocky. I was sexy. Uh, I was charismatic. And I oversimplified. And then I got around to growing up a little bit and I became a lot less cocky, a lot less sexy. I stopped oversimplifying. I started seeing my job as complexifying. I would outline the oversimplified view and then I'd start talking about what's wrong with this oversimplified view. And this disturbed students. They didn't like it. They don't want to have their oversimplified vision of reality complexified. That's hard. That makes smoke come out of your ears. You have to think. And you don't walk around with the certainty anymore. Thank God. That's a good way of defining the goal of maturation in mental health. Stop walking around with certainty. None of us deserve certainty. This world is baffling. Who gets to be certain? Well, these YouTube psych experts apparently, they get to be certain. They should be ashamed of themselves. Okay, I have to admit I'm one of them. Here I am, making a YouTube video. I've made over 100. Am I a narcissist? Of course I'm a narcissist. If you define narcissism as the craving for narcissistic supply, unlike that guy, I have not gone over the top and switched to sadistic supply. Not interested in sadistic supply, but I am after narcissistic supply. People thank me for my videos. People appreciate them. That makes me feel good. Uh, I had to give up teaching after 46 years. I lost that audience. I grabbed a YouTube audience. I apparently need an audience. That makes me a bit of a narcissist. And I'm a psych expert, but I hope and pray that I'm not objectifying and oversimplifying in the way that these other psych experts do all the time. So their work can be useful up to a point. Listen to them, but don't take them fully seriously. The world is far more complicated than they are representing it to be. Ka weat emptor. Okay.